Long before the pyramids rose, before pharaohs ruled, the Nile carved its path through the desert. Here, where the river narrowed, where the valley met the delta, humanity found its crossing point. This is where Cairo would be born. For thousands of years, nomadic tribes gathered here when the floodwaters receded. They fished the abundant waters, hunted the marshlands, and planted seeds in the rich black soil the Nile left behind. Life followed the river's ancient rhythm. But one place was different. Where Upper Egypt met Lower Egypt, where the narrow valley opened into the vast delta, a natural crossing emerged. Control this point, and you controlled all of Egypt. Here, civilization would take root. Around 3100 BCE, a king named Narmer, whom the Greeks would call Menes, achieved something unprecedented. He united the two lands of Egypt under one crown. And to rule his new kingdom, he needed a new city. He chose this crossing point. Workers laid foundations, walls rose from the earth, painted brilliant white, so bright they gave the city its first name, Eneb Hedge, the White Walls. The world would later know it as Memphis. Memphis became Egypt's first true capital, a city of palaces and temples, of artisans and administrators. From here, pharaohs would rule for nearly 3,000 years. From here, they would build monuments that would outlast their names. This is the story of that crossing point. 5,000 years of continuous human presence. Empires rose and fell. Conquerors came and went. But the city remained, transforming, adapting, enduring. This is Cairo. 5,000 years on the Nile. Our journey begins in the age of pyramids, when pharaohs commanded thousands to build mountains of stone. When Memphis stood at the height of its power, and the greatest monuments the world had ever seen rose from the desert sands. 2,600 years before Christ, Memphis was the greatest city on earth. Its population exceeded 30,000, an almost unimaginable number for the ancient world. At its heart stood the Temple of Ptah, god of craftsmen and creation. But Memphis was not merely administrative. It was the staging ground for the most ambitious construction projects humanity had ever attempted. Across the river, on the Giza Plateau, Pharaoh Khufu's engineers were about to change the world forever. For 20 years, an army of workers, perhaps 20,000 at any time, quarried, transported, and placed over 2 million stone blocks. Each block weighed more than 2 tons. The result would stand for 45 centuries, the Great Pyramid. These were not slaves, as later legends would claim. Archaeological evidence reveals organized work gangs, provided with bread, beer, and medical care. They built in shifts, their names proudly painted on the stones they placed. They built for eternity. When completed around 2560 BCE, the Great Pyramid stood nearly 147 meters tall, the tallest structure humans would build for the next 3,800 years. Its white limestone casing blazed like a second sun against the desert. Khufu's son Khafre built the second Great Pyramid, nearly as tall as his father's. But he added something unprecedented, a massive limestone guardian carved from the bedrock itself. Half man, half lion. The Great Sphinx watched over the dead. In its original state, the Sphinx was painted. Red face, blue and gold headdress, colors that proclaimed divine royalty. It gazed eternally eastward, greeting the rising sun, guarding the necropolis where the god-kings would rest for eternity. The third pyramid, built for Menkaure, completed the sacred geometry of Giza. Smaller than its neighbors but clad partially in granite, it represented a dynasty's determination to build for the ages. Together, they formed a monument to human ambition. But these were not isolated monuments. They were part of a vast sacred landscape, stretching 30 kilometers along the desert's edge. From Giza in the north to Dashur in the south, pyramids multiplied, each a frozen prayer for immortality. At Saqqara, the step pyramid of Djoser still stood, the first pyramid ever built, designed by the legendary architect Imhotep. It had pioneered the technology that made Giza possible. Here, humans first learned to build mountains of stone. From Memphis, the pharaohs administered this sacred industry. Taxes flowed in from all Egypt. Limestone came from quarries across the Nile. Granite traveled 800 kilometers from Aswan. The entire nation bent its labor toward the pyramids. But nothing lasts forever. Around 2200 BCE, a catastrophic drought brought famine to Egypt. The Nile's floods failed for decades. The central government collapsed. The age of Great Pyramids came to an end. Memphis fell silent. For the next 2,000 years, Memphis would rise and fall with Egypt's fortunes. It remained important, always important, but never again supreme. New capitals would come: Thebes, Alexandria, cities not yet imagined. Yet the pyramids endured, eternal sentinels. Persians conquered, Greeks marveled, Romans ruled. Each new power found the pyramids already ancient, already mysterious. The Greeks added them to their list of world wonders, the only wonder that would survive to the present day. By the time of Christ, the pyramids were older than Christ is to us today. They had already stood for 25 centuries. They would stand for 25 more, but the city below them was about to transform completely. When Rome conquered Egypt in 30 BCE, they found Memphis reduced to ruins. Its glory faded, but the strategic crossing point remained vital. Roman engineers constructed a fortress here, on the eastern bank. They called it Babylon. From Babylon's towers, Rome controlled the Nile, and Egypt's grain, which fed the imperial capital. For centuries, this fortress marked the southern limit of the civilized world, the boundary between Rome's order and Africa's mystery. Then came Christianity. According to tradition, the Holy Family fled to Egypt to escape King Herod. They sheltered, it was said, in a cave beneath what would become Babylon's walls. Egypt became one of Christianity's earliest homes. By the 4th century, Christianity was Egypt's dominant faith. Within Babylon's walls, churches multiplied. The hanging church, Al-Mu'allaka, was suspended between the fortress towers, its wooden beams resting on ancient Roman stones. Faith literally built upon empire. The Coptic Christians developed their own language, their own art, their own identity, distinct from Byzantine orthodoxy. They copied ancient manuscripts, preserving knowledge that might otherwise have been lost. When a new faith arrived, they would endure. In 641 CE, that new faith arrived. Arab armies, carrying the banner of Islam, swept out of Arabia. Egypt, weakened by plague, exhausted by Byzantine wars, fell in just 2 years. Everything was about to change. Fustat, the tent, became the first Islamic city in Egypt. Amr built his mosque, the first in Africa, simple and humble, mud brick walls, a roof of palm leaves. No minaret yet, but the foundation was laid for something greater. Fustat grew rapidly, a city of merchants and craftsmen, Muslims and Christians living side by side. The Copts remained, their churches protected, their language still spoken. The old and new faiths learned to share this ancient crossing point. For 300 years, Fustat was Egypt's capital, a prosperous cosmopolitan city. But in 969, a new power arrived from the west. The Fatimids came to conquer. They came to build a new city. They called it Al-Qahira. Al-Qahira. The victorious. The conqueror. The city that would give its name to the entire region. The city the world would come to know simply as Cairo. A new chapter was about to begin, written in stone and faith. The Fatimids were not ordinary conquerors. They were Shia Muslims who claimed descent from the Prophet's daughter Fatima. They had already built an empire stretching across North Africa. Now they wanted a new capital, worthy of their ambitions. General Jahar chose a site north of Fustat, safely above the Nile's floods, protected by the Mokattam Hills. On the 4th of April, 970, workers broke ground on a great mosque. 2 years later, Al-Azhar was complete. Al-Azhar was more than a mosque. It was designed as a university, a center of learning that would spread Fatimid teachings across the Islamic world. Its scholars would teach law, theology, philosophy, and science. Knowledge became the city's foundation. The Fatimids enclosed their city with massive walls and monumental gates. Bab al-Futuh, the Gate of Conquests, opened to the north. Bab Zuwayla guarded the south. Between them stretched the Kasaba, the main street that still runs through Cairo today. Initially, Cairo was a forbidden city, a royal enclosure where only the caliph, his court, and his army could dwell. Common Egyptians remained in Fustat. 2 cities existed side by side, one for rulers, one for the ruled. At the heart of Fatimid Cairo stood 2 great palaces facing each other across a plaza called Between the 2 Palaces. Here, the caliphs held court in unimaginable splendor. Visitors described halls of gold, gardens of paradise. But the greatest monument from this era survived not in Cairo, but in nearby Fustat. The Mosque of Ibn Tulun, built 876 to 879, predated the Fatimids by a century. Its spiral minaret echoed the mosques of Baghdad. Under the Fatimids, Cairo became a center of global trade. Ships from India, China, and East Africa docked at Egyptian ports. Spices, silk, and gold flowed through the city. Cairo sat at the crossroads of the medieval world. The Fatimids also built the Great Library, Dar al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom. It held hundreds of thousands of manuscripts on every subject known to medieval scholars. Cairo rivaled Baghdad as the intellectual capital of Islam. But the Fatimid Golden Age could not last. Droughts, famines, and power struggles weakened the caliphate. In 1169, a general named Saladin came from Syria to defend Egypt. He would transform the city once again. Saladin was Sunni, not Shia. In 1171, he abolished the Fatimid Caliphate, ending 2 centuries of Shia rule. Egypt returned to the Sunni fold. Al-Azhar, once a center of Shia learning, was converted to Sunni teaching. Saladin's greatest construction project was strategic, not religious. High on the Mokattam Hills overlooking the city, he began building a massive fortress. The citadel would command Cairo for the next 700 years, the seat of all who ruled Egypt. Saladin built his walls using stones from multiple sources, including, some historians believe, the casing stones stripped from the smaller pyramids at Giza, the pharaohs, monuments sacrificed to build a Muslim fortress, history consuming itself. In 1187, Saladin achieved what the Fatimids never could. He recaptured Jerusalem from the Crusaders. Cairo became the capital of a vast empire stretching from Egypt to Syria. The city's golden age was about to begin. Saladin died in 1193, but his dynasty, the Ayyubids, continued for 60 more years. They opened Cairo to the common people. The exclusive royal city became a true metropolis. But greater builders were still to come. In 1250, a remarkable revolution occurred. The Mamluks, military slaves who had been purchased as boys from Turkish and Circassian lands, overthrew their Ayyubid masters. Slaves became sultans. For 270 years, they would build Cairo's greatest monuments. The Mamluks were warrior rulers who valued military prowess and architectural magnificence. Each sultan sought to outdo his predecessors, with grander mosques, taller minarets, and more elaborate tomb complexes. Cairo became a showcase of competitive piety and power. The Mamluks transformed Bayn al-Qasrain, the old Fatimid plaza between the palaces. The palaces were demolished, replaced by 3 magnificent religious complexes built by successive sultans. Qalawun, al-Nasir Muhammad, and Barquq, each monument grander than the last. But one sultan would build the most ambitious monument of all. In 1356, Sultan Hassan, barely out of his teenage years, began constructing a mosque madrasa complex of unprecedented scale. It would take 7 years and cost a fortune. The Sultan Hassan Mosque rises 36 meters, taller than a modern 10-story building. Its entrance portal was the largest in the Islamic world. A 15th century visitor declared it had no equivalent in the whole world. Many still agree. Inside, the cruciform plan created 4 enormous iwans, vaulted halls where the 4 schools of Sunni law were taught. Students lived in cells above the arcades. The mosque was a complete university, functioning continuously for 7 centuries. Sultan Hassan never saw his masterpiece completed. He was assassinated in 1361, his body never found. The mausoleum he built stands empty to this day, a monument to ambition, but also to the Mamluk system's violent instability. In 1382, another kind of monument was born, Khan el-Khalili. Built as a caravanserai for traveling merchants, it grew into the greatest bazaar in the Islamic world. 6 centuries later, it still throbs with commercial life. But 1348 brought catastrophe. The Black Death arrived in Egypt. In a matter of months, perhaps 1/3 of Cairo's population perished. Corpses filled the streets. The city that had seemed invincible learned the limits of human power. Yet the Mamluks rebuilt. Within decades, Cairo had recovered. New mosques rose from the ruins, the city's population rebounded. By 1400, Cairo was again among the world's greatest cities, home to perhaps 500,000 people. The Mamluks developed Cairo's distinctive 3-tiered minarets, stone towers that spiraled upward in stages, each level more ornate than the last. These became Cairo's signature, giving the city its nickname, the City of 1,000 Minarets. Inside the mosques, Mamluk craftsmen achieved extraordinary feats: marble mosaics in intricate geometric patterns, bronze doors inlaid with silver and gold, wooden screens carved so delicately they seemed like lace. Beauty was a form of worship. The Mamluks also built sabils, public fountains that provided free drinking water to the city's people. Above each sabil sat a kutab, a school for orphan children. Charity and education combined in a single beautiful structure. By the late 15th century, the Mamluk Sultanate stretched from Egypt through Syria. Cairo was its unquestioned capital, center of trade, learning, and faith. But a new power was rising in the north. The Ottomans were coming. In 1517, Ottoman Sultan Selim defeated the Mamluks and entered Cairo. The last Mamluk Sultan was hanged at Bab Zuela, the very gate through which he had once processed in triumph. A 3-century dynasty ended at the gallows. Cairo was no longer a capital. For the next 3 centuries, it would be merely a provincial city of the Ottoman Empire, governed from distant Istanbul. The great building projects ceased. Cairo entered a long, slow twilight. For nearly 300 years, Cairo slumbered. The Ottomans built little. They maintained the Mamluk monuments, or let them decay. The great trade routes shifted away. Portugal's discovery of the sea route to India bypassed Egypt entirely. Yet Cairo retained its religious significance. Pilgrims still passed through on their way to Mecca. Al-Azhar continued teaching, becoming the undisputed center of Sunni Islamic learning. The city's spiritual authority survived even as its political power faded. The Ottomans did add one lasting contribution: the Great Mosque atop the citadel, built by Muhammad Ali Pasha, but that comes later. During the Ottoman centuries, Cairo simply waited for the man who would awaken it, Napoleon Bonaparte. In 1798, a French fleet appeared off Alexandria. Napoleon had come to conquer Egypt and to study it. He brought not just soldiers, but scientists, artists, and scholars. Egypt would be mapped, measured, and awakened from its sleep. The French occupation lasted only 3 years, but its impact was permanent. Napoleon's scholars produced the Description de l'Egypte, 23 volumes documenting every aspect of Egyptian civilization. The world rediscovered Egypt. Egypt began to rediscover itself. At the pyramids, a French soldier discovered a stone inscribed in 3 scripts: Greek, Demotic, and hieroglyphics. The Rosetta Stone would unlock ancient Egypt's secrets. A new age of understanding was about to begin. After Napoleon's departure, chaos reigned. Ottoman forces, British troops, and Egyptian factions fought for control. From this turmoil emerged an Albanian commander who had come to expel the French and would stay to transform Egypt, Muhammad Ali Pasha. In 1811, Muhammad Ali ended the Mamluk threat forever. He invited the remaining Mamluk leaders to the citadel, then had them massacred as they departed. With ruthless efficiency, he cleared the way for modern Egypt. Muhammad Ali set out to modernize Egypt with European techniques. He built factories, sent students to Europe, reformed the military, expanded agriculture. His grandson, Khedive Ismail, would take this further, dreaming of making Cairo a Paris on the Nile. The city that had slept for 3 centuries was about to be reborn in a European image. Muhammad Ali crowned his achievements with a mosque that would dominate Cairo's skyline. Atop the citadel, the alabaster mosque rose, its Ottoman-style domes and slender minarets visible from every corner of the city, a new symbol for a new Egypt. Muhammad Ali died in 1848, but his dynasty continued. His grandson Khedive Ismail inherited an ambitious dream to transform Egypt into a modern European state. "My country is no longer in Africa," he declared. "We are part of Europe." Ismail hired European planners to create a new downtown Cairo. Wide boulevards replaced narrow medieval lanes. Opera houses, hotels, and apartment buildings rose in Parisian style. Gas lamps illuminated the streets. Ismailia Square, later Tahrir, became the new city's heart. The greatest project was the Suez Canal. For 10 years, Egyptian workers, many forced laborers, dug through 100 miles of desert and swamp. In November 1869, the canal opened. East met west through Egyptian soil. For the opening, Ismail commissioned an opera from Giuseppe Verdi. Aida premiered in Cairo's new opera house, telling a tale of ancient Egypt with Italian grandeur. The pharaoh's story, told to European music, performed in an African capital. But Ishmael's ambitions outpaced his treasury. The Suez Canal, the new Cairo, the wars in Sudan, all cost fortunes. By 1875, Egypt was bankrupt. Ishmael sold Egypt's canal shares to Britain. The Europeans had found their opening. In 1882, British troops occupied Egypt, ostensibly to protect European interests. They would stay for 70 years. The Khedive remained on his throne, but real power belonged to the British consul general. Egypt became a colony in all but name. The British brought efficiency and exploitation. They built railways, modernized irrigation, expanded cotton production. Egypt became a critical link in the British Empire, connecting London to India. The ancient crossing point served a new master's purposes. In 1902, the Egyptian Museum opened on Tahrir Square. Its pink neoclassical facade housed the treasures of the pharaohs, brought together for the first time. Ancient Egypt, curated by Europeans, displayed for a world audience. But Egypt was changing from within. A new educated class emerged: lawyers, journalists, teachers who studied both Arabic traditions and European ideas. They began asking dangerous questions. Why should foreigners rule Egypt? When would Egyptians govern themselves? In 1919, Egypt erupted. Demonstrations demanding independence spread from Cairo across the country. Men and women marched together. Workers struck. Peasants protested. The British responded with violence, but the genie was out of the bottle. Britain granted nominal independence in 1922, but kept control of defense, communications, and the Suez Canal. A king ruled Egypt, but British troops remained. The struggle for true independence would take another 30 years. Through the 20s, 30s, and 40s, Cairo grew into a cosmopolitan metropolis. Greeks, Italians, Jews, Armenians, and Egyptians lived side by side. Movie theaters, jazz clubs, and literary salons flourished. It was the Paris of the Middle East, glamorous, cultured, alive. But beneath the glamour, frustration simmered. The king was seen as corrupt, the politicians as puppets. Young army officers began meeting in secret, plotting revolution. Among them was a colonel named Gamal Abdel Nasser. Egypt's destiny was about to change. On July 23, 1952, the free officers struck. Tanks surrounded the royal palace. King Farouk abdicated and sailed into exile. The monarchy that Muhammad Ali had founded ended after 147 years. A republic was born. Nasser rose to lead the new republic. In 1956, he nationalized the Suez Canal, reclaiming Egypt's greatest asset from foreign hands. For the first time in millennia, Egyptians controlled their own destiny. Modern Cairo would be Nasser's capital. Today, a child is born in Cairo, the latest in an unbroken line stretching back to the pyramid builders. She will grow up amid wonders her ancestors created. She will add her chapter to this story. The city continues. This has been Cairo, 5,000 years on the Nile. From the first white walls of Memphis to the towers of the new capital, from pharaohs to presidents. From chariots to traffic jams, always changing, always the same. What will the next 5,000 years bring? No one can say. But if history teaches anything, it is this. Whatever empires rise and fall, whatever technologies transform the world, there will still be a city at the crossing of the Nile. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time. Cairo has shown us that cities are more than buildings. They are the accumulated dreams and struggles of countless generations. They are memory made physical. They are humanity's greatest story. Subscribe to Time Machine Cities to explore more of the world's greatest urban stories. Next time, we journey to another ancient capital where emperors ruled and revolutions transformed. A city of eternal influence. We'll see you in Rome. Until then, remember, every city you walk through is a time machine. The streets remember what the people have forgotten. The walls hold stories the records never captured. Look closely, and you can see the past living in the present. Look even closer, and you might glimpse the future. Goodbye from Cairo, 5,000 years on the Nile.